Yellow YouTube, it's nice to see you all again. And I'm sorry for the 2 week hiatus. However, I think with the timing of this video, it's going to work out just perfectly, as it should be releasing and out by good old Hallows Eve. Which certainly raises the point of today's video. I'd like to be focusing it on all things horror. Horror ideas, horror concepts, and even the wonderful time of the month that it is. With that said, I have a few things to get out of the way first. First off, thank you to everybody watching. It means a great deal to me to have you see this content and to listen to it and hear my very much ungraceful voice. Bless your ears. I would also like to say that I hope you're all doing wunderbar, and that I hope things are going your way. And if not, I certainly hope they get better, because you all deserve to be happy and to get a life of fulfillment and satisfaction. Now then, with my wonderful coverage and the hope that you're all getting the mental health and care that you need, let's no longer dilly-dally and step right into this. I got that intro done pretty quick. Halloween. It's a tradition that's been around for a long, long time, with many festivities and peculiarities that come with it, and a vast and enormous array of traditions, one of those being dressing up. But perhaps the most important thing is that October, specifically the tail end of it, and this very day, is based in scares, horror, and the absolute creep factor. A day dedicated to trying to freak people out. It's a strange occurrence, since most places and people would typically put kindness as one of the highest things on their priority list. However, that's nothing to get too detailed into at this very time. What is it about October that lures us into the creep factor? The receding autumn leaves, how dark slowly overtakes the light, the uncanny feeling you're being watched, that there's something out there in the night, looming and waiting for you, the unseen horror of some creatures waiting and waiting for their chance. Horror isn't a genre I specialize in, nor would I consider being very good at. However, for the purposes of today and this video, I'm going to do my best for you, my wonderful audience. So, without any more ado, let us walk in. Where to begin with horror? How about a simple idea for any one of you that considers herself an artistic type? Noir is often a thriller, or more of a curiosity, taking pieces of the puzzle and stitching them together. And it also would make a wonderful case for horror as well. Now, the real problem is the exact kind of horror. You have psychological, thriller, and of course the good old gore and monster movies. Slasher films. There's all sorts of ways to execute horror, and no wrong way to really go about it, other than failing in breaking the basic principles of horror. Now, depending on who you ask, those can be different, and I'm certainly not going to get into them, though I should, but execution and sticking to rules or knowing when to break them, again, is something out of my scope. But noir and horror would go well. The killer could be in the police station amongst the fellow cops who aren't aware. It could be the beautiful nurse down the hall. Or even worse, maybe the detective's very own partner. Or, in the most tragic of cases, perhaps it is the detective himself. That's something that I would leave up to you to decipher, to code, and implement as you wish. But there are certainly a great many ways to go about the execution of this. Of course, maybe the killer is the entire focus. What's driving them? That they're getting inside your head. Or that their acts are making you uncomfortable, unpleasant, and queasy as they grow closer and closer to their end goal. It's always a distinct possibility, I suppose. However, let's move on to something a bit more important. I think a good area of coverage is the vocabulary that often goes into horror. You see, newer writers tend to have a more simplified vocabulary and use specific words that are more common and easy and that are more accessible. And nothing's wrong with this. We all have to start somewhere. However, I will always like to call into mind, and I'll probably be harping on this until the death of this channel or my own demise, that words are powerful and play a very big role in how we not only perceive the world, but fiction itself. So where are you going with this, you might be wondering? Well, that's simple. You need, of course, darker words for the impact you're looking for. When you mutilate someone, saying it nicely, you have to be very careful. You see, gore is an effective horror tool, but only so far that it's an effective shock tool most of the time. Now, in writing, you lack the ability you lack that other element of all the visual mediums, unless you're in a picture book, but I really don't think that you're going to be seeing stuff like this would end up in a picture book. Hopefully. Which means words are your keys to victory. You have to unsettle the reader. You have to come up with ideas and concepts and find out a way to execute them and find the correct words to convey your point. The atmosphere is melancholic. The darkness is growing and the light is losing its power. The floorboard creaks. You can feel Johnny's heart beating in his chest. It's slamming hard against the bone walls that keep it inside. Or perhaps maybe it loomed, towering over its prey. Right behind them it would stalk, creeping closer and closer. Now, I can of course have failed that, but with those phrases and styles, they should convey very specific images and what is going on, of course. I always say that the more vivid and more detailed, the better. But of course, saying less can sometimes lead to more. But with it looming behind them, it gives the sense that they're, of course, being hunted. That thing, in this case a monster, is behind them, waiting and preparing its pounce. That's one way to take it. With a little more, you can shift up the meaning, the way that it's coming at them, or, of course, what it's really after. Its end goal can change all the same, as can the intent of the desired scene. There's lots I can do with these little snippets and bits, but being a master crafter of words isn't something I am yet. But I still think that you talented people can certainly do something just as impressive, if not more so, especially with more time and more care on your side. While we're on to words and rules, monsters. Monsters are the biggest part of good old Hallows Eve. And more experienced viewers will have heard other, not just writing channels, but film, horror, games, channels all harping on a key aspect of not showing the monster. The fear of the unknown is always more horrifying. This will forever be the case. But the xenomorphs are also iconic and just as recognizable. Pumpkinhead is a little horror movie that seems quite interesting and very well done. Of course, I'd like to call attention here to John Carpenter's The Thing. It is a shapeshifter, but while its true looks are not revealed, you can certainly see some really horrifying stuff from it. The effects were all practical in that movie, and it really helped with its execution. Never show the monster. It's a cardinal rule that you probably hear over and over again. But something that I would like to call you to is make sure you always have set rules for the creature that you're working on. Give it a specific way of stalking. Make sure you put the work and detail into its senses and its predatory nature. Maybe it senses the iron in someone's body. Perhaps it's a heat-based predator. Sound-based. Can it detect the electricity given off by life forms in its vicinity? Can it smell fear? Can it hunt? And hunt and hunt. All sorts of things go in to making these kinds of creatures. Just make sure that they're consistent. Maybe it prefers to slink around in vents where it can't be seen, detected, and pop out right as someone walks under or near it. Drag them into the deep dark confines where their friends can't follow. Perhaps it has a preferred hunting ground, or a set time frame of attack. Maybe it has to intensely stalk its victim before it begins moving in. Who knows? These things are certainly up to you. But, and this is a big but, make sure it's somewhat believable. Believable. Sorry for the gaps there. You have to make sure that a great deal of focus goes into its design. Not necessarily its looks. When I say its design, again, I bring up the hunting and how it stalks, its phases, and whatnot. I recommend, if it's supposed to be animalistic, you do the research on a good amount of Earth's predators, because it has quite a selection, and a lot of them have some very interesting ways of hunting. Something distinctly horrifying that could fit in well here is the cone snail. The cone snail has very potent venom, but it's also mainly for paralysis. Its victim will be forced to get digested alive, or at least eaten alive. Now, it should be noted that the poison can still kill, if I'm remembering things correctly. I know the irony, talking about research and not doing it, but it was just an example from the top of my head that I feel like could be made into a decent horror concept. Why not write from the POV of someone who's just gotten stung? They're so close to getting away. They can hear a car engine in the distance. Their body locks up and they go stiff. They can see it. Their getaway right there. And their muscles clench up and their limbs stop moving. They're trapped in their own body. They're willing it onward, but it won't move. And so, they collapse right there, hand outstretched towards their waiting vehicle. But nope. Alas, hope will not find them. Hope will not reach them. They cannot escape this perilous situation that they found themselves in. And so, they collapse. I think, if executed properly, the tension, the horror, the absolute unmistakable feeling of your stomach dropping would be an intense and distinct realization for the readers. Sorry for the pause, but I just want that to sink in and let your thoughts blossom for a moment. So much of horror is fast-paced nowadays. So much of content is fast-paced. It doesn't give you a chance to think, to dissect. And so, I think that's where I like to move into a little micro subject. Like I said, jump scares have long since dominated the entertainment industry. And that can't really be helped. Jump scares cause an immediate and visceral reaction, most often because of the loud noise that blares at you. It forces a flight or fight response. And then, as soon as it's begun, it's over. Now, I'd say that has something more to do with how people have evolved with the horror genre. We're used to the creeping nature of horror, being afraid of the monster and it lurking about, skulking and redding. But that might not be true too. However, I do think that monster horror has lost some of its stopping power as the audiences have gotten more used to the way things are over time. Blood and gut movies, now a lot of people laugh at slasher flicks, rooting for the dumb heroes to get bested by the likes of Jason and Michael. But when executed properly, there's still a good chance there. As a non-visual storyteller, jump scares are completely absent from our works. Well, maybe not completely, but with the advent of the digital era and audiobooks, you could certainly slip in a loud noise and some screaming or some horrifying image, I'm sure, but slow burn is something that you'll have to probably focus more on. Slow burn. Letting your readers think about all the possibilities of the monster. Letting them think about where it could be. Its approach. Or, of course, what the heroes are going to do. How they're going to find the knowledge and beat this thing once and for all. It's an interesting subject, to say the least. But you also need to take time with your details. Well, there it is again. The monster may move slow, but it's still gotta catch up. Take another wing, perhaps? Or perhaps you need to give your readers time. You have to let it hit the races after the end of a beautiful and well-executed sequence of tension rising, building up to a breaking point, and then a explosion. It's off. You go. There is no time to think. Only act. You have to move. Do or die. And of course, this is where all the interesting things happen. The monster is revealed, and soon it will be vanquished, or everyone loses. Everyone loses. Although that's something that doesn't happen quite often in horror. Quite rare, of course. Most people don't want to root for the monster. Most people don't want the monster to win. Unless you have really gone and made some unlikable protagonists. Take a moment. Breathe. Relax. It's a beautiful day, I hope. Maybe a beautiful night for some of you. You're all wonderful and beautiful people. Keep up the fantastic work. Which, on from our last segment, raises the question, what's the proper way to execute a slow burn? I talked about it, made a great big deal about it. I need to build up the tension. Depends on what kind of horror you're going for, what kind of story, what's your angle and twist. But generally, you need to have the characters move closer to the end goal or find out more about the creature or person stalking them. Put them in a situation where they have to lose the safety of their group. Now, I said where they have to lose, and I did that very intentionally. You see, it's become a trope for people to split the group. And people will bemoan it. It's stupid decision 101. Bad decision 101. So, how about we do something to fix that? What if the monster tracks them more easily when they're in a group? If they split up, they won't get found by it. It won't be able to harass them as much. Or, perhaps, it means escape's more expedient. Or, of course, the best idea is to generally let something else force them apart. A door slamming shut. The monster itself dropping down in the middle of the group, sending them scattering, desperate for the hills. There's no escape. Not for me. Or, of course, natural disaster, fires and collapsing tunnels, running out of oxygen, the fear of being burned or buried alive. It's quite a motivator. Alrighty, in just a little bit, we'll be reaching the end. So, thank all of you. You're a great audience. And for the purpose of YouTube, and I forgot to include this at the beginning, this is mostly a PG-rated video, intended for general audiences, but maybe some kids shouldn't hear the first part. I'm a smaller channel, but I need to remember to do that. So, how about atmosphere building? I like to say atmosphere is a very important part of horror. Setting the mood just right, the conditions, the weather, the lighting, the kind of environment. An old abandoned house, a derelict space station, an Antarctic research base, maybe a normal suburbs, the limitless possibilities of the dream world. Out in the woods, alone in a desert, or trapped beneath the stars. Atmosphere, it'll make or break the horror. So, you better do it right. You can't really go wrong with the good old abandoned house, now can you? Of course, what's keeping someone from busting through a wall? There's always a ghost there. It's always haunted. Something's always lurking. Well, thank you, all you beautiful folks. I hope I can get this out. Hope I can make this happen. You're all intelligent and you're all wonderful. Wonderful. Very wunderbar. And for now, I'll wait to sing. I hope we can certainly all meet again, comrades. I'll be seeing you in the next video. And I have about a minute and 49 seconds to kill to fill out the rest of this video. So I reckon I'll have to start doing outros and working on end sequences. As usual, I hope you all enjoy the content, and I hope to be more back to normal postings next week. But life's crazy. It might not happen. But I'm certainly going to do my best. You're all worth it. I hope I'm worth it. Well, that's it. I think I'd like to do some ghost stories next, or, seeing as how it's November, something more lighthearted and wholesome, but still with that dark twist. I hope you find it just as enjoyable. Bye-bye.